"It's better if you don't come," my mom said. "You'd only ruin the atmosphere." I didn't say a thing. 2 months later, she stumbled upon my wedding video, trending everywhere online, and the guest list made her utterly collapse. Oh, the message. I remember reading it for the third time, my heart clenching tighter with each reread, desperately hoping the words would magically rearrange themselves into anything, less brutal. But there it was, stark on the screen. "Julia, I think it's better if you don't come to Vanessa's wedding. You'd ruin the atmosphere. We want everything perfect for her special day." Mom. My own mother had typed those words, hit send, and probably hadn't thought twice. And just like that, I was uninvited. I put my phone down on my desk at the Marine Biology Research Center, my hands trembling. Outside my office window, the Seattle waterfront stretched out, gray and infinite, mirroring the ache in my chest. 29 years old, and I was still the perpetual disappointment. The daughter who chose studying coral reef ecosystems over law school, who wore practical clothes instead of designer labels, who simply didn't fit the shiny, perfect image my family wanted to project. Vanessa, my younger sister, was marrying Gregory in 6 weeks. He was everything our parents had ever dreamed of, a corporate finance executive with a corner office and a trust fund. Their engagement was announced at the country club, the wedding planned for an exclusive vineyard outside Portland with 200 guests and a price tag that made my annual salary look like pocket change. And I was out. I picked up my phone again, scrolling through the family group chat I'd been quietly removed from 2 days earlier. I only knew because my cousin Bethany, bless her heart, had accidentally sent me a screenshot while complaining about her bridesmaid dress. The chat was buzzing with excited plans, flower arrangements, menu tastings, and not a single mention of me. It was like I didn't exist. Just then, my office door swung open. Killian walked in, dark hair damp from the Seattle rain, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. He took one look at my face and set the cups down with careful precision. "What happened?" he asked, his accent a soft, comforting lilt. We'd been dating for 8 months, though my family knew nothing about him. Why would they? They never asked about my life. I handed him my phone. His jaw tightened as he read the message. "Your mother actually wrote this, word for word," he muttered, eyes glued to the screen. "Julia, this is..." He searched for a polite word, clearly struggling with the casual cruelty. Killian, having grown up in Dublin, sometimes found American family dynamics baffling. "Typical," I finished for him, a bitter laugh escaping. "This is how they've always treated me." He sat across from my desk, pulling his chair close. "Tell me," he urged, and so I did. I told him everything. About growing up as the daughter who never quite measured up, while Vanessa was crowned the golden child from birth, prettier, more charming, better at the social games our parents valued. How I was constantly compared to her and found wanting. "You're too serious, Julia," Mom would say. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" I recounted the time I won a national science competition at 16, and my parents missed the awards ceremony because they were at Vanessa's dance recital. How they forgot my college graduation because they were helping Vanessa move into her first apartment. How my research on marine ecosystem preservation was published in a major journal, and Dad just said, "That's nice, honey," before going back to discussing Vanessa's promotion. "Every achievement I've ever had has been invisible to them," I said quietly, a fresh wave of hurt washing over me. But Vanessa sneezes, and they throw a parade. Killian reached across the desk and took my hand, his grip firm. "You know this says everything about them and nothing about you, right?" I wanted to believe him, but 3 decades of being treated as less than had carved deep, painful grooves into my sense of self-worth. "The worst part," I continued, "is I don't even dislike Vanessa. She's never been deliberately cruel. She just exists in this bubble where everything comes easily, and she doesn't understand why I can't just be happy for her all the time." "Are you going to respond to your mother?" he asked. I looked at the message again. Part of me longed to send something cutting, something to make her feel a fraction of the hurt she'd just inflicted. But I knew it wouldn't matter. She'd just paint me as overly sensitive, the difficult daughter making everything about herself. "No," I said finally, the word feeling surprisingly strong. "I'm not going to respond." Killian studied me, a thoughtful look on his face. "What are you thinking?" I was thinking about how I'd spent my whole life trying to earn their approval. How I'd swallowed every slight, every dismissal, every moment of being overlooked. How I'd convinced myself that if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, they would finally see me. But they never would. That message made it crystal clear. "I'm thinking," I said slowly, a quiet, defiant resolve hardening my voice, "that I'm done caring what they think." Killian smiled, but there was a flicker of something cautious in his eyes. "Should I be worried about that look on your face?" "What look?" I asked, a faint smile touching my lips. "The one that usually appears right before you solve an impossible research problem," he said, his eyes crinkling. "The one that means you've stopped accepting the situation as it is and started planning how to change it." I laughed despite myself. He knew me too well. My phone buzzed again, a new message. This time, it was from Vanessa. Mom told me she uninvited you. I'm sorry, Jules, but honestly, it might be for the best. The wedding is going to be really formal and sophisticated, and you know how you get awkward at those events. I don't want anything to go wrong on my big day. I showed Killian the message. His expression darkened. That's worse than your mother's message, he said. And he was right. Mom's cruelty came from a lifetime of favoritism and shallow values. But Vanessa's casual dismissal, wrapped in false sympathy, cut deeper. It confirmed what I had always suspected. Even my sister saw me as an embarrassment. That evening, I sat in Killian's apartment overlooking Elliott Bay, watching ferries cross the dark water. He was cooking dinner, something with garlic and wine that smelled incredible. His place was nothing like the sterile perfection of my parents' house. It was warm, lived in, filled with books, plants, and photographs from his travels. Tell me about your family, I said suddenly. He looked up from the stove, surprised. You know about my family. Tell me again, I insisted. He wiped his hands on a towel and came to sit beside me on the couch. Well, there's my ma, who still calls me every Sunday and asks if I'm eating properly. My dad, who sends me photos of every fish he catches. My 3 sisters, who never let me forget I'm the baby of the family, even though I'm 31. He paused, a warm smile spreading across his face. And they all came to your graduation. All of them flew over from Ireland even though it cost a fortune. Ma cried through the whole ceremony. They stayed for 2 weeks. Drove me absolutely mad, and I loved every minute of it. I rested my head on his shoulder. That sounds nice. It is, he said, wrapping an arm around me. And you deserve that too, Julia. You deserve people who show up for you. We ate dinner, watching the city lights sparkle across the water. Killian told me about his latest project studying deep-sea thermal vents, and I updated him on my research team's progress mapping coral bleaching patterns in the Pacific. This was what my family never understood, how passionate I was about my work, how meaningful it felt to contribute to ocean conservation, how the research center felt more like home than the house I grew up in. Later, as we cleaned up, Killian asked, "Have you given any thought to what I asked you last month?" I paused, a dish halfway to the drying rack. Killian, I know the timing is complicated, he said quickly, sensing my hesitation, with everything happening with your family, but I meant what I said. I want to spend my life with you, Julia. He had proposed 4 weeks ago, right here in this kitchen. Nothing elaborate, just him holding my hands, telling me he loved me and wanted forever with me. I'd asked for time to think, and he'd been patient. But now, with Vanessa's wedding looming and my family's rejection fresh in my mind, something shifted inside me. Yes, I said. He froze, then the dish slipped from his hands back into the sink with a clatter. He crossed the kitchen in 2 strides and pulled me into his arms, lifting me off the ground. When he finally set me down, he was grinning like a child on Christmas morning. You're serious? You're saying yes. I'm saying yes. He kissed me, and for the first time in days, the tight, painful knot in my chest loosened. This man saw me. He valued my intelligence, my passion, my dedication to my work. He didn't need me to be someone else. We should celebrate, he exclaimed, then hesitated. Wait, do you want to tell your family? I thought about it for approximately 3 seconds. No, I said, a firm resolve in my voice. They've made it clear I'm not part of Vanessa's celebration. I don't need their involvement in mine. What about your friends? I smiled slowly. That's different. And actually, I have an idea. Over the next week, my own quiet rebellion began. I threw myself into planning. Not a wedding like Vanessa's. I had no interest in pretentious vineyard ceremonies and formal place settings, but something authentic, something that reflected who Killian and I actually were. I started by calling Bethany my cousin. She was the only family member I genuinely liked, probably because she, too, had been somewhat overshadowed by Vanessa's golden glow. You're getting married, she shrieked into the phone. Julia, that's amazing. When? 8 weeks from now. Right after Vanessa's wedding. There was a pregnant pause. Your mom doesn't know, does she? Nope. Oh, this is delicious, Bethany declared. Tell me everything. I told her about Killian, the proposal, my plans for a small, meaningful ceremony. Bethany had met Killian once at a coffee shop and immediately declared him absolutely perfect for you, which was exactly the kind of support I needed. Who else knows? She asked. Just you so far. But I'm planning something a bit unconventional. I like the sound of that, she said, practically buzzing with excitement. I spent the following days reaching out to the people who actually mattered in my life. My research team, friends from graduate school, colleagues I'd collaborated with on conservation projects, and several scientists I deeply admired who had become mentors over the years. And then, I made a call that would change everything. Dr. Patricia Lawrence was a legendary marine biologist, someone I had admired since I was a teenager reading her groundbreaking papers. We'd met at a conference 2 years ago, and I had, surprisingly, gathered the courage to introduce myself. We'd stayed in touch, occasionally emailing about research. Julia, she answered warmly. What a pleasant surprise. Dr. Lawrence, I have a favor to ask. It's a bit unusual. I'm intrigued, she said. I told her about the wedding, about wanting to create something that honored the work we did and the community we had built, about hoping she might attend. I would be honored, she said immediately. But I have a better idea. Let me make some calls. Calls? I asked, bewildered. She laughed. Trust me, my dear. If you're going to do this, let's do it properly. I had no idea what she meant, but something in her voice made my heart race with possibility. Vanessa's wedding dominated every family conversation for the next month. My phone buzzed constantly with updates I wasn't supposed to see. Bethany kept forwarding me screenshots from the family group chat, partly out of loyalty to me and partly because she found the whole situation entertainingly absurd. Your mother just spent 3 paragraphs discussing napkin folds, one message read. Vanessa is having a meltdown because the florist suggested cream roses instead of white, said another. I watched this performance of perfection from a distance, feeling oddly detached. A few months ago, being excluded would have devastated me. Now, as I planned my own wedding, I mostly felt relief that I wouldn't have to sit through 5 hours of performative elegance. My own preparations moved forward quietly. Dr. Lawrence had indeed made calls, and the responses had been stunning. 3 other prominent marine biologists confirmed they would attend. A documentary filmmaker who had featured my research on coral preservation said she would love to come. A National Geographic photographer I had worked with on a project in Australia sent his enthusiastic acceptance. Julia, Killian said one evening, reading through the guest list, do you realize who these people are? Scientists and friends, some of the most respected ocean conservation researchers in the world. There are people on this list with Wikipedia pages. I shrugged, but inside, something warm bloomed in my chest. These were people who valued what I did, who saw my work as important, who wanted to celebrate with me. The wedding venue itself had come together almost magically. One of my colleagues at the research center had a family property on Whidbey Island, a beautiful stretch of beach with views of Puget Sound. Nothing fancy, but authentic and meaningful. We would have the ceremony at sunset right on the sand. Very you, Bethany said when I showed her photos. Your mom would absolutely hate it. That's not why I'm doing this, I replied, but it's a nice bonus. Killian's family planned to fly in from Ireland. His mother had called me directly, welcoming me into the family with such genuine warmth that I had actually cried after hanging up. The contrast between her enthusiastic acceptance and my own family's rejection couldn't have been sharper. 2 weeks before Vanessa's wedding, I ran into my father at a coffee shop downtown. He looked surprised to see me, as if I were an acquaintance he'd forgotten rather than his daughter. Julia, how are you? Busy with wedding preparations, I suppose? Your sister's big day is coming up. An awkward pause stretched between us. I waited to see if he would mention the uninvitation, apologize, acknowledge the cruelty of it. He didn't. Well, he said finally I should get going. Good to see you. He left without asking about my job, my life, anything. I watched him walk away and felt nothing but a mild sense of closure. This was who he was, who they all were, and I was finally accepting it. Vanessa's wedding arrived on a gorgeous June Saturday. I spent the day at the beach on Whidbey Island with Killian, swimming in the cold water and planning final details for our own ceremony. My phone buzzed periodically with photos from Bethany, the vineyard decorated in cascading white flowers, Vanessa in an elaborate gown, guests arriving in formal wear. It looks beautiful, Killian said, looking over my shoulder at one photo. It does, I agreed. And it did. Vanessa looked happy. The setting was elegant. Everything appeared perfect. I felt no bitterness about it, which surprised me. Somewhere in the process of planning my own wedding, I had stopped caring about hers. That evening, Bethany called. So, your mom asked where you were today. What did you tell her? Nothing. I just said I hadn't seen you. But Julia, she sounded genuinely confused. She seemed almost bewildered that you didn't show up anyway, despite being uninvited. Like she expected you to come and grovel for a chance to sit in the back. That sounds about right, I sighed. The whole thing was exactly what you'd expect. Lots of speeches about how perfect Vanessa is, how successful Gregory is, how proud your parents are. Not one mention of you, obviously. Bethany paused. Jules, I'm really glad you didn't come. You would have hated it. I was glad, too. Because while Vanessa had her performative perfection, I was busy building something real, something that truly mattered to me. I had assembled a guest list of people who actually knew me, who valued me for who I was. 3 days after Vanessa's wedding, the universe, it seemed, decided to have a wicked sense of humor. Dr. Lawrence called me. Julia, I've been contacted by someone interesting. A producer from a streaming platform that creates documentary content. They're developing a series on ocean conservation efforts, and they want to feature your coral reef research. My heart jumped. Seriously? I managed. Very seriously. They were impressed by the paper you published last year, and they think your work would make compelling content. They want to interview you, film some of your research activities." She paused, a hint of amusement in her voice. "They mentioned they'd also like to capture some personal moments. They specifically asked if there were any upcoming significant events in your life." I smiled slowly. "Actually, there might be." "I thought so," Dr. Lawrence chuckled. "I may have mentioned you were getting married soon. They want to feature it, Julia. A wedding ceremony that brings together ocean conservation researchers, showing the personal side of scientists working to save our planet. They think it could be powerful content." I thought about my small beach wedding, about the guest list full of remarkable people, about the genuine celebration we had planned. And I thought about my family, who saw me as an embarrassment, who had excluded me from Vanessa's perfect day. "Tell them yes," I said, a surge of adrenaline flowing through me. "Excellent. I'll make the arrangements." "Oh, and Julia, they have a substantial social media presence. Millions of followers. Whatever they feature tends to go viral." After we hung up, I sat very still, processing what had just happened. Killian found me on the couch, staring into space. "What's wrong?" he asked, concerned. "Nothing's wrong," I said slowly. "Something's just very right." The production team arrived on Whidbey Island 3 days before the wedding. They were smaller than I expected, just 5 people with cameras and equipment, led by a woman named Sophia, who had kind eyes and moved with quiet efficiency. "We're not here to make this into a spectacle," she assured me during our first meeting. "We want to capture something authentic. The connection between personal commitment and professional dedication. Love and conservation intertwined." Killian and I showed them around the venue. The beach stretched golden in the afternoon light, the water calm and reflecting the sky. Simple white chairs would be arranged in a semicircle facing the water. No elaborate decorations, just the natural beauty of the coastline. "This is perfect," Sophia said, already framing shots with her hands. "Can you tell me about some of your guests?" I handed her the list. She read through it, her eyebrows rising steadily higher. "Dr. Patricia Lawrence, Professor James Okoye, Dr. Yuki Tanaka." She looked up at me wide-eyed. "Julia, do you realize this is essentially a who's who of marine conservation science?" "They're my friends and mentors," I explained, a genuine warmth spreading through me. "They're legends," she corrected, a huge smile breaking across her face. "This is going to be incredible content. Our platform's audience is going to love this." A young scientist marrying the love of her life, surrounded by the community working to save our oceans. It's exactly the kind of positive, inspiring story we need. Over the next few days, they filmed B-roll footage of the island, interviewed some early arriving guests about ocean conservation, and captured Killian and me walking along the beach, discussing our research. It felt natural and forced. They were documenting our lives, not staging a performance. Killian's family arrived from Ireland 2 days before the ceremony. His mother swept me into a hug the moment she saw me, declaring me even lovelier than in the photos. His father shook my hand with genuine warmth, and his 3 sisters immediately adopted me as their own. Finally, another woman to balance out this family, the oldest sister, Siobhan, declared, "We've been outnumbered by brothers-in-law for too long." That evening, we all gathered for dinner at a local restaurant. The production team filmed a bit of it, the laughter, the stories, the easy warmth of Killian's family welcoming me. His mother told embarrassing stories about Killian as a child, and his father raised a glass to the brilliant woman who somehow agreed to marry our boy. I excused myself to the restroom at one point and checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my mother. I stared at the notifications, debating whether to listen. Curiosity 1. "Julia," her first voicemail began, her voice tight with thinly veiled concern. "Your father and I heard a rumor that you're getting married this weekend. Obviously, that can't be true since you would have told us about something so important. But Bethany mentioned something and now I'm concerned. Call me back immediately." The second message was sharper. "Julia, this is ridiculous. If you're actually planning some kind of wedding, you need to inform your family. We have a right to know about these things. And frankly, after we just spent a fortune on Vanessa's beautiful wedding, the least you could do is give us some warning before planning your own." The third message made me smile. I swear, you could hear the blood pressure rising through the phone. I spoke with Bethany again. "She says you really are getting married on Saturday on a beach." "Julia, what are you thinking? A beach wedding? That's so informal. And apparently, you've invited complete strangers, but not your own family. This is unacceptable. Call me." I deleted all 3 messages and returned to the table where Killian's mother was showing everyone photos of their family home in County Cork. Bethany called later that night. "Your mom is losing her mind," she whispered conspiratorially. "She's been calling everyone, trying to get information about your wedding." I got her messages. "Are you going to call her back?" "No." "Good. She doesn't deserve to be part of this." Bethany hesitated. "Jules, I have to tell you something. Vanessa knows too. About your wedding, and about the documentary crew. My stomach tightened. How? Someone from the production company posted something on social media. Just a cryptic teaser about an upcoming episode featuring ocean conservation researchers, but they tagged the island. And Vanessa follows every wedding venue in the Pacific Northwest because she's obsessed with judging other people's weddings. She put 2 and 2 together. What did she say? She's furious. Apparently, she thinks you're trying to upstage her. She called me demanding to know why you're having some kind of media wedding right after hers. I laughed, surprised by how absurd it sounded. Everything isn't about her. Try telling her that. Your whole family is in an uproar. They're saying you're being deliberately hurtful, that you're trying to steal Vanessa's thunder, that you're being selfish and attention-seeking. They're projecting, I stated flatly. Oh, absolutely. But Jules, I think they might try to crash the wedding. I considered this for a moment. Let them come, I said, my voice calm, almost detached. They're not on the guest list. But if they want to show up and make fools of themselves in front of some of the most respected scientists in the field, that's their choice. You're scary when you're calm like this, Bethany admitted. I'm done being hurt by them, Bethany. Whatever they do, it says everything about who they are and nothing about who I am. The day before the wedding, Dr. Lawrence arrived with an entourage of colleagues. I watched from the beach house as distinguished scientists piled out of rental cars, greeting each other with the enthusiasm of old friends. These were people who had published groundbreaking research, who advised governments on environmental policy, who had dedicated their lives to understanding and protecting our oceans. And they were all here for my wedding. Dr. Lawrence found me on the deck. Julia, I brought someone special. She introduced me to Dr. Elizabeth Ramos, a marine biologist whose work on ocean acidification had literally changed policy in multiple countries. She was in her 70s with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. I've read your research on coral bleaching patterns, Dr. Ramos said, shaking my hand. Impressive work. You're asking the right questions. Thank you, I managed, a little starstruck. That means everything coming from you. Patricia tells me you come from a family that doesn't appreciate your work. I blinked, surprised by her directness. That's true. Then they're fools, she said with a gentle smile. But you've built your own family here. Look around. These people respect you. They value what you contribute to this field. That's worth more than blood relations who can't see your worth. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you. That evening, the production team conducted interviews with various guests about the importance of ocean conservation. I watched Dr. Lawrence talk passionately about the next generation of scientists, specifically mentioning my research as an example of innovative thinking. Professor Okoye discussed the need for more young women in marine biology, using me as a model of someone making significant contributions early in her career. Sophia pulled me aside. Julia, I need you to understand something. This content is going to reach millions of people. Our platform has a massive following. And this story, the wedding, your work, this community of scientists, it's exactly the kind of narrative that resonates. Are you prepared for that kind of attention? I thought about my family, about their obsession with appearances and status, about how they had excluded me from Vanessa's perfect wedding because I was an embarrassment. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. Saturday morning dawned clear and beautiful. I woke up in the beach house to the sound of waves and seagulls, with Bethany asleep in the other bed. She had arrived late the night before, declaring herself my official maid of honor, whether I wanted one or not. Big day, she said when she woke up. How are you feeling? Good. Really good, actually. No nerves about marrying Killian? None. About my family potentially showing up and causing a scene? A little. She sat up. If they show up, I'll handle them. You just focus on your day. The production team arrived early to capture, getting ready footage. They filmed me in a simple white dress. Nothing elaborate, just something that felt like me. Comfortable, elegant, appropriate for a beach ceremony. Bethany helped with my hair, leaving it down in loose waves. You look beautiful, she said. And more importantly, you look happy. Guests began arriving around 3 in the afternoon. I watched from the window as rental cars pulled up, disgorging scientists from around the world. The documentary crew moved among them, capturing conversations about ocean conservation, climate change, the importance of research funding. Then I saw it. My mother's car. She pulled up with my father, Vanessa, and Gregory. They climbed out, and even from a distance, I could see my mother's disapproving expression as she surveyed the casual beach setting. They actually came, Bethany said, spotting them too. Of course they did, I replied, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. They couldn't stand the idea of missing out on something. Sophia appeared at my door. Julia, there are some people here who aren't on the guest list. They're claiming to be your family. They are my family, I confirmed. Do you want them to stay? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to have them escorted away, to exclude them the way they had excluded me. But a better idea formed. A deliciously powerful one. Let them stay, I said. Seat them in the back. And Sophia, make sure your cameras capture their reactions. She smiled slowly. I like how you think. The ceremony was scheduled for 5 in the evening, time to catch the golden light before sunset. I waited in the beach house while Killian took his place near the water. Through the window, I could see the assembled guests, over 100 people, many of them recognizable from their published work, their TED Talks, their contributions to ocean science. And in the very back row, looking deeply uncomfortable, sat my family. Dr. Lawrence appeared at my door. "Ready? You're walking me down if you'll have me. I know I'm not your father, but I'd be honored to stand in." My father was 20 yards away, but he had never really been present in my life. Dr. Lawrence had been more of a mentor and supporter than he had ever been. "I'd love that," I said, my voice thick with emotion. We walked together down the sandy aisle between the chairs. I saw Killian waiting for me, his eyes bright with emotion. I saw his family beaming from the front row. I saw colleagues and friends smiling, their faces full of genuine warmth. And I saw my mother's face in the back, her expression cycling between shock and confusion as she took in the distinguished guests surrounding her. The ceremony was conducted by a retired marine biology professor who had known both Killian and me during our graduate studies. He spoke about the ocean, about the currents that bring things together, about the importance of finding a partner who understands your passion and purpose. Killian and I had written our own vows. When it was my turn, I looked at him and felt nothing but certainty. "I promise to support your research, even when it takes you to the other side of the world," I said, my voice clear. "I promise to celebrate your discoveries and help you through your frustrations. I promise to be your partner in saving the oceans we both love. And I promise to build a life with you that's based on what we value, not what anyone else expects of us." He wiped his eyes. When he spoke, his Irish accent thickened with emotion. "I promise to see you always, to value your mind and your heart equally, to stand beside you as you change the world with your research, to remind you of your worth when you forget it, and to love you exactly as you are, without asking you to be anyone else." We exchanged simple silver rings. We kissed as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, and our guests erupted in applause. Not polite, formal clapping, but genuine, enthusiastic celebration. The reception was held right there on the beach. No formal dinner service, no assigned seating. Instead, we had a seafood barbecue with long tables where guests mingled freely. The production crew moved through the crowd, capturing conversations between Nobel laureates and young graduate students, between documentary filmmakers and research assistants. I watched my mother approach one of the tables, clearly trying to figure out who these people were. She stopped a man who was chatting enthusiastically about deep-sea exploration. "And how do you know the bride?" I heard her ask, her tone dripping with polite disdain. "Julia?" "Oh, we collaborated on a research paper about coral bleaching in the South Pacific," he replied, beaming. "Brilliant mind. Her work on ecosystem adaptation is going to be foundational in the field." He extended his hand. "Dr. James Okoye. I teach at Oxford." My mother's face went pale. She moved to another group where Dr. Lawrence was holding court. "Julia was one of the most promising young scientists I've encountered in decades," Dr. Lawrence was saying. "Her approach to marine conservation combines rigorous scientific method with innovative thinking. She's exactly the kind of researcher we need in this field." Vanessa stood nearby, her perfect composure finally cracking as she realized she was surrounded by people whose accomplishments dwarfed anything in her social circle. A woman approached her, introducing herself as a National Geographic photographer. "Are you a scientist too?" the photographer asked politely. "No, I work in marketing," Vanessa said stiffly. "Oh, how nice. Julia's research is so important. We featured her work in a spread last year. The photos of the coral system she's documenting are stunning." I saw Gregory pull Vanessa aside, whispering urgently. They were realizing, slowly, that this wasn't some small beach wedding thrown together by their embarrassing relative. This was a gathering of significant people in a field that mattered. Bethany appeared at my elbow, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Your mom just asked me who all these people are. What did you tell her?" I told her they're Julia's friends and colleagues. She looked like she might faint. "Good." Killian found me as the sky darkened and someone lit a bonfire on the beach. "Are you happy?" he asked, his eyes soft. "Extremely," I said, leaning into him. "Even with your family here." "Especially with my family here," I corrected myself. They're finally seeing what they dismissed for so long. The evening continued with toasts and stories. Dr. Lawrence spoke about the future of ocean conservation and the brilliant young minds leading the charge. Professor Okoye talked about the importance of supporting women in science. Killian's mother told a funny story about the first time Killian had called home to talk about this amazing scientist he'd met. Then Sophia approached with a microphone. "Julia, would you mind saying a few words for the documentary?" I took the microphone, suddenly aware that this would reach far beyond the people gathered on this beach. Millions would eventually see this. "I want to thank everyone for coming," I began. For those who don't know, most of the people here tonight are marine biologists, oceanographers, conservation researchers. They're people who have dedicated their lives to understanding and protecting our oceans. I saw my mother's face in the firelight, finally understanding the caliber of the guests she had been dismissing. I grew up feeling invisible, I continued, my voice steady, like my work didn't matter, like my passion for ocean science was somehow less valuable than other pursuits. For a long time, I believed that. I thought maybe I was the problem. Killian squeezed my hand. But then I found this community. I found people who valued questions over appearances, who measured success by contribution rather than status, who saw worth in dedication to something bigger than ourselves. I looked around at the assembled guests, my heart full. You taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up for you, who celebrates your victories, who sees you for who you actually are. The crowd applauded, a wave of genuine warmth. I handed the microphone back to Sophia, who was wiping her eyes. My father approached me shortly after. Julia, I had no idea you knew such distinguished people. Why would you? You never asked about my work. He flinched. That's not fair, is it? Dad, when was the last time you asked me about my research? When was the last time you showed any interest in what I do? He had no answer. My mother was next, her composure finally cracking. Julia, if we had known you were planning something like this, you would have what? Suddenly cared about my life? Suddenly seen me as worth your attention? Don't be dramatic. We've always cared about you, she protested, her voice rising. You uninvited me from Vanessa's wedding because I would ruin the atmosphere. You told me I was an embarrassment. I never used that word. You didn't have to, I countered, keeping my voice calm, factual. You've been showing me that my entire life. I'm not angry anymore, Mom. I'm just done. Done trying to earn approval from people who have already decided I'm not worth it. Vanessa appeared, Gregory trailing behind her. Julia, this is all very impressive, but did you really have to plan this right after my wedding? It feels deliberately spiteful. I stared at my sister. Vanessa, I got engaged before you did. I just didn't tell you about it. And I planned a wedding that reflected what Killian and I actually value. None of this was about you. Then why the documentary crew? Why all these important people? Why make such a big production? This isn't a production. This is my life. These are my friends. This is the community I've built. I gestured toward the beach where scientists were laughing around the bonfire. I'm sorry if it threatens you that I have something meaningful, but that's not my problem to solve. Gregory spoke up. I think what Vanessa means is that it seems calculated, like you're trying to prove something. I'm not trying to prove anything to you, I said quietly, firmly. I don't need your validation anymore. Any of you. Bethany materialized at my side. I think it's time for you all to leave now. We're family, my mother protested. You excluded me from Vanessa's wedding because I didn't fit your image of perfection, I said, meeting my mother's gaze. Now you're excluded from the rest of my celebration because you don't fit my definition of family. Seems fair. They left, finally, climbing into their car and driving away into the darkness. I watched their taillights disappear and felt nothing but relief. The party continued long into the night. Killian's sisters taught everyone Irish drinking songs. Someone started a debate about deep-sea exploration that got hilariously heated. The documentary crew captured it all, the laughter, the passionate discussions, the genuine warmth of people who loved their work and each other. Around midnight, Killian and I walked down to the water's edge, away from the crowd. The moon was bright, reflecting off the calm surface. No regrets? He asked, his voice soft. None, I confirmed, wrapping my arms around him. Marrying you? Best decision I've ever made. Standing up to your family was also satisfying to watch, he chuckled. I laughed. I didn't plan for this to be some big statement. I know. That's what makes it perfect. You just built something real, and it highlighted how shallow their values are. We stood there, listening to the waves, while behind us, our friends celebrated into the night. The documentary episode aired 6 weeks later. I was at work when my phone started exploding with notifications. The streaming platform had released the episode that morning, and within hours, it had gone viral. The view count climbed into the millions. Comments poured in. This is the most beautiful wedding I've ever seen. These are the people making a real difference in the world. The bride is a literal genius and her family didn't even know. Anyone else crying at how she found her real family? Media outlets picked up the story. Headlines appeared. Marine biologists' wedding brings together conservation heroes. The wedding that's inspiring a generation of scientists, when your real family is the one you build. Someone had done a deep dive on the guest list, identifying each notable scientist and their contributions. The article had been shared hundreds of thousands of times. My research, which had been known primarily in academic circles, suddenly had mainstream attention. The Marine Biology Center's website crashed from traffic. I received interview requests from major news networks. Dr. Lawrence called, laughing. Julia, you've done more for ocean conservation awareness in one day than most of us manage in years. Every news outlet wants to talk about your research now. I just got married, I said, still processing. You did, and you showed millions of people what scientists actually look like, what we value, what we're fighting for. It's extraordinary. My phone buzzed with a message from Bethany. Have you seen your family's social media? I had not. Curiosity made me look. Vanessa had posted a lengthy statement about how proud she was of her sister, how she'd always known I was destined for great things, complete with old photos of us together. The comments were brutal. Didn't you just get married? Why is this about you? Your sister literally wasn't invited to your wedding, lol. The performative support is embarrassing. My mother had shared the documentary episode with a caption about how blessed she was to have such accomplished daughters. The comments there were even worse. The documentary literally mentions how unsupportive her family was. Maybe show up for your kid before they're famous. This is sad. Just admit you messed up instead of trying to claim credit. The attention didn't fade. If anything, it intensified over the following weeks. The documentary episode became one of the most watched pieces of content on the platform. News outlets continued to feature stories about the wedding, about ocean conservation, about the community of scientists working to protect marine ecosystems. I was invited to give a TED Talk. 3 different publishers reached out about writing a book. The research center received a massive donation specifically designated for my coral reef project, with a note from the donor saying they had been inspired by the documentary. My inbox overflowed with messages from young women considering careers in marine biology, saying I had inspired them. High school science teachers wrote to say they had shown the documentary to their classes. Environmental organizations asked me to speak at their events. Through it all, my family stayed conspicuously silent. No phone calls, no direct messages, just their increasingly desperate social media posts trying to associate themselves with my sudden visibility. Each one met with more skepticism and criticism than the last. Then, 3 months after the wedding, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Julia. Her voice sounded strained. We need to talk, do we? Please, can you meet me for coffee? I considered refusing, but I was curious about what she wanted, and I had nothing to fear from her anymore. We met at a cafe near the waterfront. She arrived looking smaller than I remembered, her usual confidence diminished. She ordered a latte and sat across from me, struggling to make eye contact. I've been getting calls, she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. From friends, from the country club, from people at the company where your father works, about. She twisted her napkin, her eyes starting away. About the documentary. About how we treated you. And that bothers you? I asked neutrally. Julia, people are saying terrible things. They're calling us toxic parents. They're saying we abused you emotionally. Your father's colleagues have been asking him why he wasn't at his daughter's wedding. She sighed heavily. And Vanessa, her company let her go. They said something about image concerns, about not aligning with their values. She's been applying to other positions, but every interview goes badly once they realize who she is. Apparently, the video of her at your wedding looking uncomfortable around actual accomplished people has become some kind of meme. That's unfortunate, I said, sipping my coffee. Is that all you have to say? My mother's voice rose slightly. Your sister lost her job, Julia. We're being ostracized from our social circle, and you just sit there acting like none of this affects you. It doesn't affect me, I stated plainly. It affects you. Those are consequences of your own choices. We made mistakes, I admit that, she cried, desperation creeping into her voice. But did we really deserve this level of public humiliation? I set down my cup carefully. Mom, you uninvited me from Vanessa's wedding because I would ruin the atmosphere. You told me I was an embarrassment. You spent my entire life making me feel worthless because I didn't fit your narrow definition of success. I never meant yes, you did. You meant every word. You just never expected anyone to care. You thought I'd stay quiet and invisible forever, accepting whatever scraps of attention you were willing to give me. I leaned forward slightly. But I didn't do this to you. I didn't create a documentary to expose you. I just lived my life, celebrated my marriage with people who actually value me, and told my truth. The fact that the world responded the way they did, that's not on me. That's on you. So you're not going to help us? She asked, tears welling in her eyes. Help you how? Issue a statement saying you were actually wonderful parents and I was lying? Pretend that everything was fine. You could at least acknowledge publicly that we've reconciled, that we're working on our relationship. But we're not, I said. We haven't reconciled. You haven't apologized, really apologized, for 31 years of dismissing me. You're just upset that there are consequences. My mother's face hardened. You've become cruel, Julia. No, I corrected. I've become honest. There's a difference. She stood abruptly. I hope you're satisfied. You've destroyed your sister's career and your family's reputation. I got married, I said quietly. That's all I did. Everything else is just the natural result of your own behavior finally being visible. She left without another word. I finished my coffee alone, watching the ferries cross the gray water, and felt a profound sense of peace. 2 weeks later, I received an email from Vanessa. Unlike my mother's phone call, this one seemed genuine. Julia, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I don't blame you. I've had a lot of time to think since I lost my job, and I've been watching that documentary over and over. Really watching it. I mean, seeing how our family treated you, hearing you talk about feeling invisible, and I'm ashamed. I was part of that. I benefited from it without ever questioning whether it was fair. I told myself you were fine, that you were just different. But really I knew. I knew Mom and Dad treated you terribly, and I let it happen because it meant I stayed the favorite. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, and I know I can't undo 30 years of being complicit in their behavior, but I needed to say it. I read Vanessa's email 3 times before responding. Part of me wanted to delete it, to leave her message unanswered, the way so many of my needs had gone unacknowledged throughout our childhood. But I had never wanted to become like them, petty, vindictive, incapable of growth. Vanessa, I appreciate your email. I don't know what our relationship looks like going forward, but I'm willing to talk. Not because I need anything from you, but because you seem to actually be reflecting on the past rather than just managing the fallout. We met for lunch a week later. She looked different, less polished, more uncertain. The armor of perfection she had always worn had developed cracks. I've been in therapy, she said after we ordered. Since I lost my job. At first, I went because I was angry and wanted to talk about how unfair everything was, but my therapist kept pushing me to examine my own role in our family dynamic. And I realized I've spent my whole life performing, being the perfect daughter, the successful one, the golden child. I never questioned whether that role was built on putting you down. She looked at me directly, her eyes welling up. I'm genuinely sorry, Julia. Not because the documentary made me look bad, but because I participated in hurting you. It was the first real apology I had ever received from anyone in my family. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. That means something. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, or maybe ever. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better. We talked for 2 hours. Really talked. Maybe for the first time in our lives. She told me about the pressure of being the favored child, about how exhausting it was to maintain the image Mom and Dad demanded. I told her about years of feeling like a ghost in my own family, about finally finding people who saw me. Your wedding looked amazing, she said quietly. Not just the setting or the production, but the people. Everyone looked so happy to be there, so genuinely connected. They were. My wedding was beautiful, but it wasn't real. It was a performance for 300 people, most of whom I barely know. Gregory and I spent $200,000 on one day, and I can't remember feeling happy during any of it, just stressed about everything being perfect. She hesitated. Do you love him? I don't know. I think I love the idea of him, the successful husband, the right kind of marriage. But do I love him? We barely talk about anything real. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You can change that, you know. You can build something authentic, like you did, like I did. Over the following months, Vanessa and I developed something resembling a real sister relationship. She divorced Gregory amicably. They had both realized they were performing rather than partnering. She took a job at an environmental nonprofit, making a fraction of her previous salary, but seeming genuinely engaged with the work. My parents, however, remained unchanged. They issued a public statement through a family friend's blog, claiming the documentary had been edited to make them look bad, that I had always been dramatic and attention-seeking, that they had always supported my career despite my difficult personality. The statement backfired spectacularly. People compared it to the unedited footage, found no evidence of manipulation, and the criticism intensified. Several think pieces were written about parents who couldn't accept accountability, even when confronted with clear evidence of their behavior. My father's company quietly asked him to retire early, not officially because of the controversy, but the timing was obvious. My mother's friends at the country club stopped inviting her to events. She tried joining different social groups, but people recognized her from the viral clips. Bethany sent me updates occasionally, half amused and half horrified by their continued refusal to simply admit they had been wrong. Your mom tried to join a book club, one message read. Someone had them read an article about emotional neglect in families. Your mom walked out when the discussion turned to accountability. Meanwhile, my career flourished. The visibility from the documentary led to increased funding for ocean conservation research. I was invited to present at international conferences. My work on coral reef adaptation became part of a major policy proposal for marine protection. Killian and I bought a house with a view of the water. His family visited twice a year, filling our home with warmth and laughter. Dr. Lawrence became a regular dinner guest along with other colleagues from the research center. We built the kind of life I had always wanted, filled with meaningful work, genuine relationships, and purpose beyond appearances. One evening, almost a year after the wedding, I was reviewing research data when Killian came into my office. "There's someone at the door for you," he said, his expression odd. My father stood on our porch, looking older than I remembered. He held a small package. "Julia, I hoped we could talk." I considered closing the door, but curiosity won again. "Come in." We sat in the living room. Killian brought coffee and then disappeared tactfully into his own office. My father looked around at our home, the bookshelves full of marine biology texts, the photographs of research expeditions, the framed publications. "This is nice," he said finally. "Very you." "Thank you." He handed me the package. "I found this while cleaning out the garage. I thought you might want it." Inside was my science fair trophy from high school, the national competition I had won while they were at Vanessa's dance recital, the one they had never acknowledged. I stared at the trophy, a flood of memories returning. I had been so proud of that win, had imagined. My parents' faces when I told them. Instead, they had dismissed it with barely a glance, too focused on Vanessa's performance. "Why are you giving this to me now?" I asked, my voice flat. My father shifted uncomfortably. "I've been thinking a lot since the documentary, about the kind of father I was, or wasn't." He paused. "Your mother and I, we got caught up in a certain vision of success. Country clubs and corporate careers and maintaining the right image. And we pushed that vision onto both of you girls. Vanessa fit the vision. You didn't." "No, I didn't." "And instead of celebrating that, instead of appreciating that you had your own path, your own remarkable achievements, we treated you like a disappointment." He looked at me directly, his eyes filled with a raw, unfamiliar regret. "That was wrong. I was wrong." "Are you apologizing?" "I'm trying to. I'm not good at this." He rubbed his face. "I watched that documentary, Julia. I watched it alone after your mother went to bed. And I saw myself through your eyes. The father who missed your graduation. Who never asked about your research. Who wasn't at your wedding." His voice cracked slightly. "Who made his daughter feel invisible." I said nothing, waiting. I can't undo 31 years of being a bad father. I know that. And I'm not here to ask for forgiveness or to make myself feel better. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. What I failed to do. "Why no?" I asked. "Because of the public attention? Because people are judging you." "Partly," he admitted, his gaze meeting mine. "I won't lie about that. The criticism hurt. But also, I watched you in that documentary. I saw you with those accomplished people, with Killian's family, with your colleagues. I saw you happy in a way I've never seen before. And I realized I didn't know you at all. My own daughter, and I had no idea who she really was. You never asked." "No," he whispered, "I never asked." He set down his coffee cup with shaking hands. "I don't expect this to fix anything. I don't expect you to suddenly want a relationship with me. But I needed to say it. To actually apologize. Not to manage the optics, but because you deserved better than what I gave you." We sat in silence for a long moment. I turned the trophy over in my hands, remembering 16-year-old me, so desperate for my parents to be proud. "Thank you for saying that," I finally said. "It doesn't erase the past, but it matters." "Is there any chance?" he asked, his voice hesitant. "Could we try to build something now?" I considered it carefully. "Maybe. But it would have to be real, Dad. No performing. No pretending the past didn't happen. If you want to know me, you have to actually be interested in my life, my work, the things I care about." "I'd like that," he nodded, standing to leave. At the door, he turned back. "For what it's worth, that wedding looked beautiful. And those people, your colleagues, the things they said about you and your work. I should have been saying those things your whole life." After he left, Killian emerged from his office. "How do you feel?" "Honestly, I'm not sure," I said, looking at the trophy. "Part of me wants to believe he's genuine. Part of me thinks it's just damage control. Maybe it's both. People are complicated. My therapist would say I don't owe him anything. That I can choose not to engage." "You can," I agreed. "What do you want?" I thought about it. I want to be open to the possibility that people can change, without being naive about the likelihood. I want to protect myself without becoming bitter. That seems wise. Over the next few months, my father made genuine efforts. He asked about my research and actually listened to the answers. He read my published papers, even the technical ones he clearly didn't fully understand. He met Killian properly, asked him about his work, treated him with respect. My mother made no such efforts. She remained convinced that she had been wronged, that the documentary had unfairly portrayed their family, that I owed her an apology for the embarrassment. Vanessa tried to build a bridge between us, but I had no interest in reconciling with someone who refused to acknowledge reality. "She'll never admit she was wrong," Vanessa told me. "She's too invested in her self-image." "I know," I said. "And I'm okay with that. I don't need her approval anymore." The documentary continued to impact lives in unexpected ways. I received letters from adult children of narcissistic parents, thanking me for showing that it was possible to build a fulfilling life beyond toxic family dynamics. From young scientists who felt empowered to pursue their passions despite lack of family support. from women who had felt invisible and were inspired to find their own communities. A year and a half after the wedding, the documentary won several awards for its impact on environmental awareness and science communication. The streaming platform created a whole series inspired by it, featuring other scientists and their important work. I was invited to consult on ocean conservation policy at the national level. My research team expanded. Killian and I talked about starting a family of our own, determined to do better than the models we had been given. My mother never recovered socially from the fallout. She lost her position on several charity boards when other members expressed discomfort with her presence. Her circle of friends dwindled to a handful of people who either hadn't seen the documentary or shared her inability to self-reflect. She spent her days bitter and isolated, convinced the world had treated her unfairly, never acknowledging her own role in her circumstances. My father eventually moved into a separate bedroom and lived a mostly independent life, maintaining a cordial distance while pursuing his own tentative relationship with me. Vanessa built a genuine career in environmental work, using her marketing skills to promote conservation causes, and we became the sisters we should have been all along. As for me, I stood on a research vessel in the Pacific, watching the sunset over waters I was helping to protect, surrounded by colleagues who valued my contributions, married to a man who saw me completely. I realized that the best revenge had not been the viral documentary or the public consequences my family faced. The best revenge was building a life so fulfilling, so meaningful, so authentically mine that their approval had become utterly irrelevant. I hadn't just proven them wrong. I had proven to myself that I never needed them to be right.